Lou, why don't you start, okay? And welcome.
Okay. Chairman Bell, Chairperson Wilk, members of the committee. My name is Lou Thompson. I'm chairman of the peer review group. Other members of this group, Marty Wax, Stacy Mortensen, and Gary Gallegos, are known to many of you. They're prominent transportation people in the state. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today. I believe this hearing comes at a very important point in the development of high-speed rail in California. Decisions made by the legislature in this session could have a major impact on the timing and eventual success of California's transportation network and on the role of high-speed rail within that network. As you may know, the peer review group was created in Proposition 1A to advise the legislature on high-speed rail developments, including business plans and funding plans published by the High-Speed Rail Authority. We sent a letter on January the 14th commenting on the significance of the expressions of interest received by the authority when it requested the ideas and reactions of the private sector to investing in the project. We then sent a letter on the 25th of March commenting in some detail on the draft business plan. The authority will also be shortly providing to you a set of jointly developed dashboard indicators which we think are very useful in terms of giving you a broad overview of how's the project going and where and when you might want to start being worried. In these letters, we emphasized a number of important issues. First, the new construction sequence adopting an iOS north to San Jose rather than south to the LA Basin was driven by financial limitations, and it leaves Bakersfield to Palmdale Gap unfilled until the completion of Phase 1. The peer review group supported the authority's decision in the 2012 and 2014 business plans to complete the southern gap first. And we continue to believe that filling that gap should be a priority if funding limitations are lifted. Second, if the initial northern iOS is completed as planned, the lack of a connection into Bakersfield and the lack of a fully functional connection from San Jose to the Trans-Bay Terminal in San Francisco will limit system ridership and passenger revenue. Completing that those connections should be a priority. At the same time, implementation of the blended system service approach on the peninsula poses a number of complex and as yet unresolved institutional and funding issues that we believe the legislature should keep itself fully informed about. Third, the ability of the authority to finance the initial iOS north to San Jose depends on important assumptions about, first, significantly lowered construction costs based on favorable experience and some significant redesigns. Second, the timing and amounts available of Proposition 1A funding, which is subject to litigation, as we know. Third, the ability to spend the full amount of the federal ARRA money, which, as you know, if not spent, parts not spent expire on September 30th, 2017. And most important, the authority's ability to securitize cap-and-trade funding when needed in the future. Chairman Richard mentioned the year roughly 2022, and that amount is $5.237 billion. The legislature will want to assess the validity of these assumptions, especially because securitizing cap-and-trade funding apparently requires action by the legislature. This is not an assumption. In effect, it's a request for action. Fourth, completing the full connection from Bakersfield to Trans-Bay will depend on $2.9 billion in new funding not currently identified, though the authority suggests applying for federal funds. The outlook for such a request is not clear. And five, despite demand, revenue, and cash flow projections that are significantly more favorable than those included in the 2012 and 2014 business plans, completion of the full Phase 1 system from Anaheim through LA Union Station to the Trans-Bay Terminal in San Francisco continues to face roughly a $19 billion gap. in firmly established funding out of the total $55 billion cost, even after projected private investment is included. This is not a new issue, as there has been a funding gap beginning with Proposition 1A and continuing in all business plans, but it should not be ignored. The legislature could most significantly influence the outcome by clearly establishing an adequate and consistent funding stream for the authority so that it could securitize its income streams and extend availability payment guarantees to potential private sector partners. Expansion of federal participation in the form of RIF or TIFIA loans also would require reliable repayment mechanisms that the authority does not now have. Extending the cap-and-trade program beyond 2020 and defining the authority's share of the proceeds would deal with at least part of the funding objective, but other mechanisms also could be considered, such as granting the authority the ability to extend availability payment guarantees or other financing mechanisms such as fuel taxes, sales taxes, or dedicated taxes such as those used to finance BART. We emphasize that this is not solely a funding issue, it is also a commitment and a priority issue. If the state wants to follow the process through to completion, there would be many ways to put a financing package together. As a final point, the peer review group has repeatedly emphasized that if this massive project goes ahead, there will be a need for very thorough oversight to ensure that the promised benefits emerge and the potentially large risk to the state are managed. The legislature may want to consider creating a select committee to ensure oversight continuity. In addition, we believe this requires a dedicated and continuing oversight effort with adequate resources, possibly lodged within the LAO, though the exact location can certainly be discussed. The stakes for the state are far too high to rest solely on periodic oversight hearings and audits. Let me summarize by stressing that none of this is necessarily meant to be critical of the authority. The authority has made progress, and they are learning from experience. We know far more about the dimensions and challenges of high-speed rail in California now than we did even 2 years ago. With this acknowledged, the authority is now at the point where a lack of resolution of the issues we have discussed will make effective management and planning more and more difficult. The authority now needs guidance from the legislature about its plans and its funding. I will be available for questions with the rest of these. Yeah.